Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Turtle Wins the Race Home Based Business Podcast, where we talk about home based business. I'm Kara Buntin. I've had a home based business since 1999, and that was a long time ago. So, first I did wedding cakes. Now I do stuff on Etsy and I sell cake decorating type products online. Um, in that time, and this is legit, I'm going to be biting my tongue a lot during this one because I know too much. I've been around for a long time. I've seen a lot of people do some weird stuff. I know too much about this kind of thing. So um, I wanted to talk today about believing your own press. And the reason that I started thinking about this is that I've seen a few incidents recently, not in the Etsy arena, but in other places where people kind of there's a lot of ways to describe this: getting too big for your britches, um, having that's not really having shoes that are too big to fill. It's like think it's basically over promising and under delivering, which is the exact opposite of what you should be doing when you run a business. So I started thinking about this because I saw a couple people who I think are kind of they might be okay, but they might be on their way to an unpleasant understanding that they're not really what they're telling people they are. And that's basically what this is. If you run into people who, you know, they have a lot of stuff to say about how great they are, and then you pull back the curtain and it's not so good. That's what I'm talking about. Now, you need to be careful of this for yourself, especially in the context of the over promising and under delivering thing. Because if you're running a business, you don't want to do that. If you want people to continue to come back to your business, you want to under promise and over deliver, not the other way around. But a lot of people do the fake it till you make it thing, and that's fine. If that's just the way that you kind of pump yourself up to be in the world. Like if you are an introvert and you have to pretend to be extroverted in order to sell your products, you can do that, and that you can do that for a short amount of time before you kind of mentally collapse. But it's the people who do that all the time, and then they start to build a following and a fan base. And I think that that's where this is really the crux of the matter. The fan base is very dangerous, and you start to believe your own hype, you believe your own press, and that's when you get in trouble. And I was actually just looking at a YouTube video about okay, I don't want to say what it's about because it was really about one of these situations, but somebody said something along the lines of, this is what happens when it's all hype and no delivery. And that's basically what you want to watch out for, both in other people and in yourself. And it's very easy to get caught up. And I know that most of you are listening to this saying, I would never do that. I would never do this. That's not me. I'm not gonna get caught up in that. But it is easy because people enjoy flattery. People like to be flattered. And when people flatter you, it kind of gives you swelled head syndrome. All right, now let's talk about swelled head syndrome for a minute. Swelled head syndrome is a phrase that I got from, I think it was from a book written by the guy who played Greg Brady on the Brady Bunch, which is my all-time favorite TV show. One of my all-time favorite TV shows. If I had to sit and watch one TV show for the rest of my life, I would choose that one. And I loved it when I was a little kid. I was old enough to watch it when it was actually on TV, but I was very young. And I still remember it was that, and then the Partridge Family came on. Partridge Family, kind of same thing, a little cooler, you know. But the Brady Bunch was the pinnacle of cheesy TV in the 70s. It was awesome. Anyway, I read this book by Barry Williams, who played Greg Brady, and it was about the making of the Brady Bunch. And it was so much fun to read this because you got a look at behind the scenes stuff and the whole thing. And he made the point that and I think that this is why I love it when people get busted. I love it when people get busted. My favorite thing. Okay, when someone gets their comeuppance, that's what I like. And he made the point in this book that one of the themes that ran through the Brady Bunch was the swelled head syndrome, where one of the kids would get swelled head about something, like somebody gave them a compliment and they're like, yes, I am great, aren't I? Or something good would happen to them and they took it just a little too far. And it basically inflated ego, swelled head syndrome. Their head swelled up. Okay. And then it would be the job of the other kids to take them down a notch and to remind them that they're human and they need to interact in society and not be a complete jerk. So, swelled head syndrome is a phrase that I use for a lot of people that I see this happening to, and they probably, a lot of them might realize that they're doing it. In next week's podcast, I'm talking about investing in your business, and in the context of buying classes and buying equipment and that kind of stuff. You have to be really careful when people get swelled head syndrome because you don't always realize it until you have spent enough time in their orbit where you kind of see that there are chinks in the armor and it's not as perfect as they're presenting. I think that we all know this. Realistically, we know that people on social media are not presenting the bad parts of their life. Everybody is just presenting all the great stuff and they're exaggerating. There's a lot of exaggeration that goes on. But that's a normal thing that we all are kind of aware of. It's when you start believing it yourself that it gets dangerous. Okay. So in our context, like in the context of having a home-based business where you're delivering goods and services to people, it comes down to kind of being aware of your limitations and not taking on too much. If someone comes to you and says, can you make this for me? And you immediately think, everybody tells me, I mean, this is all running through your mind subconsciously, right? You start thinking about, I have so many fans and every time I post something, people tell me it's great. I can do anything. Well, that might not be true. I mean, yeah, you might be able to do it. And I ran into this a lot with cake decorators. This is so common with cake decorators. It's ridiculous. Where people would take on a job, somebody would hire them to do a cake from a magazine or from a Pinterest post that they saw, or it's just, here's this picture. Can you make this for me? And they would say, yes, I can. And then they would turn around and come to the cake forums and say, how do I make this? I don't know. I've never made a cake before. Literally, there were people who would say, I need to know how to make this. I need someone to make me a tutorial, a step-by-step tutorial, and I need a recipe because I don't know a recipe for a cake. I am not kidding. I saw that at least once, if not more than once. And yeah, that's not good. Okay, that is it's either believing your own press or just being too cocky. It's when you get too cocky that you get in trouble. All right, it's all kind of just be aware of your limitations. And that is not to say that you shouldn't try new things. It's not to say that you shouldn't learn new things, but you shouldn't learn those things while someone is paying you to do it. You should take the time to learn it and then sell the service or sell whatever it is. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that as consumers, you really need to be careful who you believe online or just in real life. We've all been ripped off by somebody at some point, right? We've all put our faith in someone who turns out to be nothing like what they said. And we only found out about it either too late or when we saw someone else have a problem with it that wasn't resolved or whatever the situation is. I can think off the top of my head of multiple people that I've dealt with over the years, both in, the online business and in wedding cakes, who were not exactly what they said. They believed their own hype and they never delivered exactly what they were supposed to be delivering. And it did not end up well for them. All right. So I'm thinking right now of two situations, like I mentioned. There's two situations that I'm seeing it has nothing to do with me. I'm just seeing this happen from afar. Both of them, I can trace it back to believing your own hype, believing your own press. These people were telling people that they did something or they were something or they were going to deliver a service. And then people started piling on telling them how great they were. Okay. It gets dangerous for everybody when people start telling you how great you are. And if you're going to listen to the press where people tell you how great you are because of something that you did or something that you said, you also need to listen to the press where they tell you how much you suck, because you should be getting a little bit of all of that. And if it just starts piling on where everybody's like, you're so great, you're so great, that's not something that you want to listen to. Don't listen to any of it. Just keep going about your business. You want to have happy customers. Yes, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you want to have happy customers, but don't let those happy customers give you the excuse to think that you can skate on your reputation and your past efforts, right? And not deliver what you're supposed to be delivering. I see this sometimes with people on Etsy, um, who will get a bad review. This is actually pretty common. I got a 1-star review. Everyone else who has bought this product gives it 5 stars. Okay, that has nothing to do with that 1-star review. Okay, just because everyone else who gave it 5 stars gave it 5 stars, it doesn't mean that this one transaction didn't have a problem. And yes, it could be that the customer was crazy or a crank or whatever, just angry at the world and gave a bad review. But just because everybody else liked that product, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to like that product. And I think that's where people start to get a little bit complacent. You get a little bit sloppy, maybe, or you just kind of stop thinking about it so much. You're not putting as much effort into it. That's where you get in trouble. So just be careful that you keep your feet grounded, remain modest. All right. There's such an example that I want to give about this. At the same time, I don't like calling people out. And I'm not going to give the example, but just be aware, and I will talk about this more next week. Just be aware that you need to keep this in mind for yourself. The bigger thing is to keep it in mind for other people. Okay. Because honestly, most people you're probably going to fall victim to this at some point, right? You're going to fall victim to this at some point where you get swelled head syndrome. And if you don't have people around you to tell you to calm the heck down, or you're not telling that to yourself, you don't have to have people telling you that you suck in order to figure this out. I can recognize when people, and just somebody in the Facebook group yesterday said something about, she posted a question. I answered the question and she was like, ooh, Kara herself is answering. I'm like, yeah, I answer questions all the time. But if I see someone else in the group has answered it, I'm not going to go in and answer it again saying the same thing because it's been answered, right? So if nobody else has answered it, I'll answer the question. It's not, it doesn't make me superior to anybody else. Just if I was the first one to answer the question, it doesn't make me better than anyone else's answer. So don't get all excited, okay? But I need to recognize that. And I need to recognize that and you need to recognize this, when people tell you, oh my God, you are the best, you are so talented, just say thank you and move on. It's a nice compliment, but it doesn't reflect on your worth as a human, that you're better than other people. Take the compliment and move on. Yes, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have confidence in your own abilities, because I know I'm going to get people telling me that you need to have yeah, you do need to have confidence in your own abilities. You also need to understand your limitations. That's what I'm saying. So understand your limitations, have confidence in your own abilities, and you'll be fine. You also need to be careful though, because there are other people who have confidence in their own abilities and they don't know their limitations. And because they get that kind of input from people, they get that feedback of you're so great, you're the best. Oh my God, I can't believe you're answering my question. Oh, wow. They really believe that. They start to believe that and they start to think that they are better than you and that they have some kind of magic. And generally when that happens, yes, maybe they are good at something, but it could be because they've worked at it for 15 years. And it could be that they are selling something more than you do because they have a mailing list with 50,000 people on it and they sell 50 of them, whatever it is, when they send an email out. which is a tiny fraction of the email list that you might have, and it's a tiny fraction of their email list. Nobody mentions to you when they start saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I'm kind of thinking in terms of selling products to other people, like selling products to other businesses, meaning like classes, services, software, that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of that in that world. And I'll talk about that a little bit more next week. You need to be very careful because a lot of these people start believing their own press and they really don't have all the answers. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, yes, have confidence in yourself. No, don't turn down a compliment if that might make you feel good. That's great. But don't take that as an excuse to not deliver what you are supposed to be delivering because your reputation will take care of it, right? Um, don't take it as an excuse to tell people that you can do things that you can't. Know your limitations, be honest, keep your feet on the ground, don't get swelled head syndrome. And if you, yeah, that's, I'm just going to stop because I am going to say too much, right? I know too much. I know too many people in this context. Next week, I'll talk about investing in your business in this same kind of context because you do really have to be very careful when you're buying classes. Again, I've seen too much. All right. I will talk to you guys later. Give this video a thumbs up and leave me any questions if you have them underneath.